Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to review the real estate market analysis for Almaden Valley, California for August of 2009. This presentation is sponsored by my company, Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services, serving all of Silicon Valley, and by me, Robert Whitelaw. I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of California. I'm also a member of the National Association of Realtors and a certified ePro. Now, there's a variety of ways of getting in touch with me. Probably the best is through my website at www.soldbyrobert.com, where you'll find all the various ways to get in touch with me, plus articles, information, a great multiple listing service search tool that's map-based, so you don't need to know the number or the boundaries of a city. You can just look on a map and zoom in on the areas you care about and create some very dynamic search tools for yourself. If you'd like to get in contact with me via email, you can just send those to robert@soldbyrobert.com. If you'd prefer to call me directly, just dial 408-852-0525. And if you prefer to chat online, you can get in contact with me using AOL Instant Messenger, Google Talk, or Yahoo IM using the screen name The Rebel Broker. My Skype name is Rebel Broker. And of course, referrals are always appreciated. Or if you or anyone you know is interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate in the Silicon Valley area, please feel free to get in contact with me and I'll help you any way I can. And even if you're outside of the area that I normally serve, I can go through the process of finding the perfect agent for you and ask all those tough questions that are sometimes a little bit hard for you to ask yourself, and get the right agent for you depending on your needs. Just get in contact with me using any of the ways I've mentioned above, and we can get started finding the perfect agent for you. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers for Almaden Valley for August of 2009. Now the first thing we're going to look at is inventory numbers, and you can see we've had a little fluctuation over the last few years, a pretty big decrease between 2008 and 2009, but you'll know if you've looked at my other presentations, particularly for the county, you'll notice a pretty dramatic difference between Almaden Valley and the general performance of the county. Almaden Valley has really been performing very well. It's held its own against some pretty well-known neighborhoods as far as being communities that are known to be very much in demand. Almaden Valley has proven itself to be a place that's very resilient to the current market. Now, the inventory is down from 2008 to 2009 by 19.66%. That's 23 fewer homes in the inventory in Almaden Valley in 2009 than 2008. Now remember, this is just the month of August, so it's August of 2008, August of 2009, going all the way back to 1999. Now the total homes on the market was 94. So actually a pretty healthy number, and we'll see that as we move on, these numbers as they relate to each other are also very healthy. Now the next bar we're checking out here is the number of homes that were listed in this particular month going back. Now you can see back in 2002, things were going crazy. We had a pretty big inventory, but a huge number of homes being put on the market. This year we have also seen a dip in homes that are being listed. That's been helping to keep the inventory number down, and I think that's been helping to keep the market generally stronger in Almaden Valley. New listings was down 37.21%. That was 16 fewer homes listed than at the same time in 2008. That gave us a grand total of 27 homes that were listed in August of 2009. Again, a pretty healthy number. And in fact, if you just look at the month of August going all the way back to 1999, that's the lowest number of homes that were put on the market over the 10-year period of time that we're looking at here for this month. Now, I think a lot of that may have to do with just folks seeing that it's a softer market. And what's great about that is that means that we're not seeing the short sale rush to list that we've seen in some other communities. So this is all really good news for Almaden Valley. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the sales numbers. Of course, that's one of the things people look at most. We can see that these numbers are also performing fairly well. Sales are actually up 11.11%. That's 3 more homes sold in August of 2009 than in August of 2008. That gave us a grand total of 30 homes that were sold in Almaden Valley. Now, as I have used with all of my other presentations, I like to take a look at the ratio between the homes that sell and the homes that are currently in inventory. Now, the reason why I do that is it gives us 2 ways to sort of look at that data. One, it can be thought of as sort of a how long would it take to sell the inventory we currently have sort of a number. That stands right now at 3.13. So if we were to freeze the inventory and sales numbers as they are right now, it would take just a little over 3 months to sell off all of the inventory. That's a very healthy number. Anything below 4 is considered a pretty robust market. Even when the market was really hot, you can see probably this ratio was at its best in 2005. But it's, anything under 4 for me is good. And the lower it gets, the more it tends to benefit sellers. So really, what this is sort of telling us is that it really has gained in strength for sellers. Another way for this number to be looked at on the part of sellers is to think of it as a competition index. In this case, for every home that sells, there are about 3 homes trying to get sold. So in other words, buyers in your neighborhoods in Almaden Valley do not have a lot of competition with other homes. The average buyer is only really able to choose between 3 homes when they make their purchase, which means there's a little bit more pressure to act early, a little bit more pressure to make an offer on a property, because of this competition index, buyers are seeing homes that they are looking at selling quicker. So psychologically, it creates a little bit more of an emphasis on getting those offers in on properties, which is a lot like what it was back when things were at their peak. Remember, you'd go and you'd take a look at a property, and then you'd want to go look at it a few days later and discover that it was in contract. That's the kind of numbers we're seeing here in Almaden, which is actually kind of interesting. Now, last month, this number stood at 3.04, so it's actually gone down a little bit since last month. To compare that to the county ratio was at 3.62 for the month of August. So Almaden is outperforming the county by a pretty large margin. And last month, it was almost a tie between the county and Almaden. The county was at 3.01 last month, and Almaden was at 3.04. So we've sort of seen a crossover to the point where Almaden Valley is quite dramatically outperforming the county in this particular number comparison. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the same numbers for past months. So instead of just looking at 1 month going back years, we're just looking back month to month all the way to March of 2008. And again, we'll look at inventory numbers first. This is sort of a way to see if we can't figure out where things are going to go, see if we are seeing similar performance this year as we did last year. You can see the general trend upward in inventory. That's not great news, but it's a very gradual increase. And you can see the seasonal influences. You see in wintertime, we see our biggest dip in inventory, and that's entirely normal. So what did we see in the build up to August of last year? Well, we saw things sort of dropping from June all the way to August. There was pretty much a steady decline in those inventory numbers. This year, a little bit more flexibility. We saw some decreasing going on, and then August we saw a really big drop. And some of that may have to do with our increase in sales numbers, but the sales numbers weren't up that much to really account for that. We'll see how this plays out in coming months, but I'm actually fairly optimistic about the Almaden Valley market. Now, the next number we're seeing is the number of homes that have been added to the inventory, the number of homes listed in each month. You can see this has been pretty much in general in a steady decline. Again, we see it dropping off in the winter months as folks stop listing their homes because we're in the holiday season. The folks that are listing in those months tend to be folks who are a little bit more motivated for sales. They're willing to put up with folks coming and looking at their properties during the holiday season. Now, if we look at the buildup from last year to August, we can see that there was, again, a pretty steady decline in the numbers as we built up to August. And this year, not so much a steady decline. In fact, we saw pretty much flat performance with a little bit of a bump in July and then a drop in August. So there's nothing really the past market motion is going to tell us or imply where we might go. But I do think this number will probably continue to decrease just because that's sort of been the general trend. Now let's take a look at sales numbers. You can see that these are on the increase, which is pretty good news. We're down a little bit from last month. And last year we saw, really, if you sort of discount the performance in July where we saw such a dramatic increase, it's really fairly similar performance between last year and this year. And given that, you'd think that we might see some drop-off in sales in the coming months. I think that we had some folks who had come out in general for property because of the short sale and foreclosure situation, a lot of the perception of deals, but a lot of it also has to do with the fact that Almaden Valley has seen a drop in average price that really makes the community very attractive for folks. Now, if we look at how much things have declined or how much things have changed from July of 2009 to August of 2009, inventory is down 24.8%. That's 31 fewer homes in inventory in August than in July. The number of homes that were listed is down 46%. That's 23 fewer homes listed than in July. And sales are down 26.83%. That's 11 fewer homes sold in August than July. That's actually a little bit of a surprise to me. We saw such a dramatic increase. And then remember, the things that sell in August that officially get noted as sold actually went into contract in July. So it's a little bit surprising to see that number decline quite that much, since July is usually one of those months where you see a lot of folks out there looking to purchase property. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the short sale and foreclosure distribution here for the properties that are in Almaden Valley. You can see that for this month, conventional sales made up 87% of the homes that did sell. 7% were foreclosures, 7% were short sales. And that really boiled down really to just 2 foreclosures and 2 short sales. So that's still very healthy. If you look at the county in general, we're very much beating the county in general on what percentage short sales and foreclosures make up of the marketplace. And really most other communities aren't doing as well as Almaden Valley. So that's actually pretty encouraging. Last month, 90, really in the same ballpark. 5% of them were foreclosures, 5% were short sales, 90% conventional. So really generally the same sort of performance. We haven't seen huge fluctuations on this where suddenly foreclosures and short sales have made up a huge percentage. So that's also good news. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the home prices. We've seen obviously some pretty interesting motion on this. Prices are definitely down from last year. 2009 was really the turnaround year for prices in Almaden Valley, where we saw them start to go down. It was actually late 2008, early 2009. Now the average home price from the same time last year is down 20.93%. That's a dollar drop of $262,107. The average home price was $990,263 in Almaden Valley. We hit our peaks really in 2008, which I believe was right around $1.1 million. And then we had it drop off to what we're seeing it in this month. Now the median is also down. The median is down 21.36%. That's a dollar change of $235,000, with the median price standing at $865,000. Now, what that tells us is that while the average price may have been $990,000 plus a bit, that more properties were sold below that amount than above it. So the concentration on activity has been at lower end properties. And one reason why it's important to really look at the median price when you're looking at smaller communities like Almaden Valley is that 1 or 2 sales can really skew those average price numbers. So by taking a little bit of a closer look at the median, you can get an idea. At first, you can be clued in that might be happening, that there might be a couple of properties that were at the extreme high end. But it also gives you an idea of when things are clustered sort of at a lower price. It gives you an idea of the distribution of these sales, since half of the properties that sold were above the median and half of the properties that sold were above the median. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the highest priced single-family residential property in Almaden Valley for the month of August of 2009. That one was at 6617 Camellia Drive, and that property sold for $1,580,000. It was originally listed for $1,690,000. It was on the market for 64 days. The lowest price single-family residential home was at 1079 Cloverbrook Drive. That property sold for $703,000. Its list price was actually below that at $698,000, and that was on the market for 8 days. That property was bought in October of 2002 for $491,460. Now, the reason I mention that is there are a lot of folks who are upside down in various parts of Silicon Valley with their properties. And, you just don't see that in Almaden Valley. Even some of these folks that are really urgently trying to get their properties sold and taking big discounts, even folks that only bought them in 2003, 2004, 2005, still a lot of those homes that are still selling at a price higher than what they paid. So that's good news for sellers out there that are having to sell their property. Almaden Valley is also one of those locations where I get an awful lot of buyers creating searches for that area. So it's very popular. It's one of the go-to places. So I think it's actually one of those markets. If you're someone who's looking to invest and you're looking for something that has a lot of stability, Almaden Valley is a good consideration for you, particularly for rental properties. I know rentals aren't real hot right now simply because of the way the numbers are working out. In a lot of ways, it makes more sense for some folks to buy. But the great thing is its location. The size of the properties tends to be a little bit better than other places, and the commute can be very comfortable from there, since it sort of sits at the crossroads of several major thoroughfares. Now, the average price per square foot in August of 2009 was $407.23. That was down from last month's $411.14. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at home prices for past months. Again, this is just going back to March of 2008. We're not just looking at the month of August. The average price has trended down, and really, it's pretty hard to miss that trend. You can see there have been some fluctuations, some ups and downs. But remember, as I mentioned before, because of the small number of homes that tend to sell on a month-to-month basis, just one or two properties that sell at the extreme high end can really skew these numbers up a little bit. A good way to look at it is sort of to see where the median is. And you can see that's often a little bit more stable. And that also indicates that we're just seeing more of a concentration below these average prices, with them getting fairly close back in April, where the average price and the median price kind of mesh together there a bit. So what does this tell us? A lot of folks will contact me and ask if how this affects their asking price. Well, this specifically doesn't really affect what I think you should be selecting for your asking price for your property. I think that numbers like this for communities like Almaden Valley and most others, it's best looked to determine where the activity is happening for properties that are selling. Where are the majority of buyers spending their money? And that's really what this tells you. It sort of tells you where you're seeing more buyers coming out to make purchases, and can often give you an idea of how much longer it's going to take you to get a property sold, simply based on the lower number of buyers that are available at that price range, or that tend to be coming out at that price range. Now, as I mentioned, the average home price was $990,263. The price change from July to August was an increase of 3.49%. That was $33,351 more in August than in July. And again, don't look at this as an indicator of how much you should increase or decrease the asking price of your property. Look at this as an indicator of where the buying trends shifted to for this month. Because this isn't what you need to know to decide what your property should be listed for is a completely different set of numbers. It's very specific to your area. Even within Almaden, there are smaller areas where the evaluation is a different process than anything we're showing right here. So keep that in mind as we go through these numbers. Now, the median price was at $865,000, as I mentioned before, and that was actually down from last month by 5.46%. That was a $50,000 change. Total number of homes that sold in Almaden Valley was 30, so that's really what all this is based off of, 30 different transactions that closed in August. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the number of days it took to get homes sold for those properties that did sell in Almaden Valley. You can see that number is down. It's down 18.52%. That's 10 fewer days to get a home sold in August of 2009 than in August of 2008. And let's sort of break this down. I think it's healthy to not just say, oh, well, okay, it'll take me 44 days to get my property sold. Again, this number is affected so dramatically by other things that you really need to sort of look a little bit more deeply into it. And of course, if you're looking at a specific property that you currently own, you'll want to contact a real estate professional. I love working in Almaden Valley, so feel free to give me a call if you want a market analysis on your property. But the lowest days on market for this month was 0. We had properties that actually sold before they actually got entered into the multiple listing service. The longest days on market, the highest was 138. The next highest was 130. The homes that sold before they got onto the multiple listing service, there were 2 of those. 3 homes sold in the first week, so that's homes that sold in 1 to 7 days. Homes that were on the market 8 to 30 days, there was 10 of those. Homes that sold in 31 to 90 days, 11 of those. 91 to 180 days, 4 of those. And none of the homes sold in 181 days or more. So that's actually pretty impressive. It bucks the trend for a lot of other areas in Santa Clara County again. So in addition to the other areas we've talked about, the amount of time it's taking for folks to get their homes sold in Almaden Valley is better than most other locations. Now, 50% of the homes that did so in under 30 days, which is fantastic. So if we look at this, and this is where you want to sort of in your mind to be mixing median price with the average price with how long it was taking to get these properties to sell, you'll often find a pretty good correlation between the cost of a property and how long it takes it to get sold. It often simply takes longer. But if we're talking about the typical home in Almaden Valley, I mean, you've got a 50% chance of getting that property sold in 30 days or less, and that's pretty outstanding. That's a pretty amazing number. And in general, if we just average the whole thing, only having a 44-day wait to get a property sold is pretty impressive. But remember, we have to sort of temper that with the understanding that we had a couple of properties that took over 130 days to get sold. Last month, 36.5% of the homes that sold did so in under 30 days. Still a very healthy number and a little bit more in line with what we've seen in other communities. But I'll tell you, August was a great month for Almaden Valley on just about every number that we've looked at so far. Now let's go ahead and look at the same numbers just in past months now. So again, going just back to March of 2008 to see what sort of a trend we've got. And you know what? You see a lot of fluctuation here, and a lot of that, remember, we've talked about this with other presentations, is oftentimes these numbers can be pushed one way or the other by having properties that have been on the market for a really long time. You can have one property sell that's been on the market for a really long time really skew these numbers. Now, a good example of that is January. If you look at January of 2009, you just see this dramatic 116-day days on market number popping up, and that's really, if I'm remembering correctly, there was one property that had been on the market for something like 400 and something days, where all the other properties had been somewhere more in the neighborhood of the distribution we've been seeing normally, and that just really threw it all off. And that's also affecting this general trend number. Now, if you're just sort of eyeballing this, you can see last year. In August, we had longer to get homes sold, and we already discussed that. But we can also see that the trend just before that month was a little bit different as well. We had some very low sale time on market numbers in May and in June. Not a lot of correlation between last year and this year. If we go back to March, you can see it was 82 days in March of 2008 and 33 days in March of 2009. My general feeling here is that we are truly in a period of more rapid sales in Almaden Valley. I know that this trend bar tends to show a slight increase, but frankly, with the activity I'm seeing in the area and the anecdotal experience of understanding what causes some of these numbers to go up, I actually think that despite this number being what it is, that the trend is down. Now remember, what I'm doing here is showing you the numbers as they would be reported by the popular media, what you would get out of any magazines or articles that were written on the area. Will simply tell you, for instance, that in January of 2009, it took 116 days to get a property sold. They won't look any deeper and see if those numbers were getting skewed. I do that, and in this case, I think it's strong enough that it's actually causing a misperception here on the long term. I actually think we're in a period of decline for average days on market for Almaden Valley. We'll see if that pans out over the long term. But I think that's a pretty comfortable assertion to make. Now, between July and August, we had a 38.89 decrease in the number of days on market. That's 28 fewer days to get a property sold in August than in July. Now, finally, let's go ahead and take a look at where all these properties were. We actually had, again, a pretty good distribution. This is the second month in a row where the distribution's been pretty straight all the way along Almaden. Nothing down further into New Almaden, with a little bit more of it focused up towards the Coleman end of Almaden Valley, near the Jeffrey Fontana Park, as you can see there on the map. And that's fairly normal. A lot of folks who will come into Almaden Valley, one of the first things they'll tell me is they want something with a convenient commute, where they can either take Camden up if they're starting to head towards the northwest or the peninsula, and other folks saying they want to be able to take Almaden Expressway straight up if they're heading into downtown. It really depends on where they're needing to go from here. But that's one great thing about Almaden Valley, is its access to a couple of different commute avenues that also lead onto some freeways that make it easier to get where you need to go. But it gets a little bit more difficult the deeper you get into Almaden. It just takes a little bit longer, and it really can extend your commute depending on how many folks are ahead of you in that commute. But in general, very healthy numbers here for Almaden Valley. Now, finally, I'll go ahead and list out all the ways you can get in contact with me. I'm not going to read them out. I just wanted to present them here again so that if you'd like to get in touch, you've got an easy way to just jot these numbers down. Now, I do appreciate you taking the time to listen to these presentations on the various markets I serve. And again, if I can be of any help to you, please get in touch. I'll be happy to help any way I can. Thanks, and I'll talk to you all next time.